Somewhere in the United States, local authorities forced an entire community to abandon their homes. The government sealed every road leading in. Houses were left exactly as they were. And here's where it gets strange. The place is still marked as Helltown on official maps. The American landscape is filled with picture-perfect communities, tree-lined streets with white fences, classic diners on Main Street, annual 4th of July celebrations. But there's another America hidden from view. One that doesn't make it onto promotional brochures. These aren't manufactured tourist attractions with scripted haunted house experiences. These are authentic locations. Communities so unsettling that even longtime residents warn visitors against staying past sunset. Some are slowly dying, others carry dark legacies. A handful seem to be waiting for something. We're exploring 10 obscure American communities you've likely never encountered and may regret discovering. One location where an entire population vanished without explanation. Another where subterranean flames have been consuming the earth for 6 decades. And there's the settlement where hundreds of people share a single structure and the access tunnel locks each evening. You think you know about eerie towns? Perhaps. But are you familiar with the one that maintains a functioning library, has 0 residents, and is managed entirely by one woman? And believe me, what's coming will exceed your expectations. Subscribe now so your next cross-country drive doesn't accidentally route you through America's most haunted postal codes. Let's begin. Number 10. Moonville, Ohio, where time stands frozen. Deep in Ohio, there's a railway tunnel where trains no longer pass, where electric lights never shine, and where witnesses continue reporting a swinging lantern carried by someone who perished more than 100 years ago. Sounds like an ideal destination for an afternoon outing, doesn't it? Moonville isn't exactly a town anymore. It's the remnant of what once was. Hidden in southeastern Ohio's wilderness near Zaleski State Forest, this 1800s mining settlement has long since disappeared. What remains? A solitary train tunnel and enough supernatural accounts to make horror writers reconsider their genre. No paved roads lead to Moonville. You have to hike through dense woodland, passing crumbling stone foundations and a moss-covered graveyard. The sensation of being observed is inescapable, because you probably are. The tunnel is all that survives from the Marietta and Cincinnati Railroad route. No trains have traveled through since 1988, but ghost sightings maintain their regular schedule. Local folklore speaks of the Lantern Man, a railway employee allegedly decapitated on these very tracks. Visitors have witnessed a glowing orb flickering deep within the tunnel before disappearing completely. Paranormal investigation teams are drawn to this location. Living humans, considerably less so. Here's what makes it particularly unsettling. Moonville doesn't appear on most modern maps. Its population reached absolute zero in 1947. Yet people still document sudden temperature drops, shadowy silhouettes, and incredibly, the distant sound of train whistles where no tracks remain functional. Oh, and wireless internet coverage? Completely absent. So if you're planning to ghost hunt here, don't count on live streaming your potential demise. This location represents what happens when complete isolation collides with historical tragedy and simply refuses to depart. Moonville isn't disturbing because of what exists there. It's disturbing because of what's absent. No cellular signals, no local population, no contingency plan if circumstances turn dangerous. Just ancient stone, lingering smoke, and an overwhelming sensation that something never received notification of its own death. And let me be direct. If your definition of entertainment involves ghost-filled tunnels, poisonous serpents, and trail maps that resemble a child's crayon scribbles, congratulations. You're Moonville's ideal demographic. Personally, I prefer communities with pizza delivery, not abandoned mining operations staffed by the eternally employed dead. And if Moonville's isolation disturbed you, prepare yourself for the community that literally sealed itself inside a single building and discarded the exit key. Number 9. Picher, Oklahoma, promises that poison. There exists a community in Oklahoma where the earth is caving in, the water supply is contaminated, and federal authorities actually compensated residents to evacuate. Just another typical American neighborhood. Picher, Oklahoma once thrived. It was a mining boom town with substantial wealth, patriotic imagery, quality education, steady employment. Fast forward several decades, and today it resembles an apocalyptic wasteland, Vacant houses, hazard warnings, and enormous mounds of toxic mining refuse called chat piles, which sounds almost charming until you discover they're saturated with lead, zinc, and arsenic. Between 1927 and 1967, Picher generated over 50% of the lead utilized in World War II ammunition, celebrating victory. But here's the devastating consequence. The mining operations left behind a honeycomb network of tunnels beneath the community. Now the ground is structurally compromised. The atmosphere is filled with lead particles. And the children? Blood toxicity levels reached alarming heights. These were genuine health emergencies. The Environmental Protection Agency designated it America's most contaminated community. More than 34% of tested children showed elevated blood lead concentrations. Sinkholes randomly consumed streets and residences. Property valuations effectively reached zero. Current population, approximately zero. It's officially condemned. Federal authorities finally intervened with a buyout program during the 2000s. Most inhabitants departed, some resisted, but when an EF4 category tornado obliterated what little remained standing in 2008, the town was effectively erased. Picher doesn't simply feel abandoned, it feels like someone deleted it mid-existence. You know conditions are severe when a tornado destroys your community, and FEMA responds with, honestly, reconstruction isn't worth attempting. And I must say, imagine residing in a location where your backyard consists of uranium-adjacent gravel piles and your navigation app still attempts redirecting you into collapsed roadways. Oh, and the sole online review reads, "Interesting ghost town, brought my Geiger counter for entertainment." Picture this scenario. You step outside your front entrance. Silence prevails, excessive silence. A breeze stirs dust particles, and those particles contain actual microscopic lead fragments. Your dog attempts digging a hole and vanishes into subsurface cavities. Welcome to Picher. Would you prefer living adjacent to a haunted cemetery or directly above a toxic minefield? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'm documenting terrible decisions for research purposes. Number 8. Centralia, Pennsylvania. The town burning forever. Imagine your hometown ignited in 1962 and the fire never ceased. Not the structures burning, the ground itself, the literal earth beneath your feet. Still burning, still lethal, and yes, some people stayed. Centralia was once your standard mid-20th century Pennsylvania coal community. Hardworking residents, 2 church congregations, corner markets, Friday night football games, all the classic Americana, minus the part where the underground caught fire and continues burning indefinitely. Here's what happened. Someone ignited a trash fire inside an abandoned coal pit. The flames spread to a massive underground coal seam and, well, it's still combusting. Over 60 years later, authorities attempted extinguishing it, then tried again, then ultimately surrendered and began compensating people to relocate. The town faced gradual condemnation. Its postal code was deleted like corrupted data, but not everyone evacuated. A handful of residents remained. Their homes still stand, fractured, tilted, ghostly, while white smoke seeps upward from sidewalks like dry ice at a cursed dance. The temperature remains unstable, the air composition literally toxic, the aesthetic, end of civilization chic. The underground inferno has been burning since 1962. The fire encompasses an estimated 400 acres, and continues expanding. Population declined from 2,100 plus residents to fewer than 5. Home valuations roughly translate to, "We'll compensate you for leaving." Air quality registers somewhere between vape shop atmosphere and volcanic hellscape. On the positive side, no snow removal required during winter. The ground melts it automatically. Honestly, how does one even obtain insurance coverage for a Centralia residence? Hello, I'd like fire protection. Yes, ongoing. Yes, for 60 years. No, it's not in the house, it's beneath it. Imagine your kitchen floor literally glowing. Not from lighting fixtures, from geothermal energy, but hey, complimentary heating, correct? Picture walking your dog on a foggy morning, except that fog consists of toxic vapor venting from earth fractures. You turn a corner and realize you're standing on a massive sinkhole waiting to collapse. It's not haunted, but it absolutely wants you gone. At least in Moonville, the ghosts remain confined to the tunnel. In Centralia, the entire community exists as one prolonged slow-motion exorcism. Centralia's fire could continue burning for another 250 years. Yes, that's not a typographical error. The town may have vanished long ago, but the fire still operates on schedule. And if Centralia represents a community that burned itself off geographical maps, the next location might have cursed itself into oblivion. Number 7. Dudleytown, Connecticut. The Valley of Whispers. There's a reason Dudleytown doesn't appear on your navigation system. It's not a technical malfunction. It's a warning. Dudleytown, Connecticut represents the kind of place that shouldn't have existence. And technically, it doesn't. No street markers, no official municipal documentation, no postal code. Just a name whispered between campfire tales and internet forums discussing cursed communities that feel fundamentally wrong. Established in the mid-1700s by the Dudley family, yes, allegedly descended from English nobility, the village suffered through suicides, mental breakdowns, agricultural failures, and inexplicable disappearances. Residents didn't pass away peacefully, they unraveled mentally. And then the town itself disintegrated. By the early 1900s, complete abandonment had occurred. And not the typical people moved elsewhere abandonment. Trees consumed foundations. The atmosphere became unnaturally still and nobody ever rebuilt. The land was sealed away. Visitors continue receiving warnings against entering, and if you proceed anyway, you're trespassing on private property, or something far worse. There's no actual rent because there's no actual functioning community. No census data, no infrastructure, no real estate valuation. But don't let that mislead you. Dudleytown demands payment. Paranormal investigators have documented camera malfunctions, time disorientation, and overwhelming waves of nausea. Some claim the forest produces a sound. Not whispers exactly, but something like forgotten speech patterns being remembered. One woman reportedly fled the area in panic, insisting something had penetrated her thoughts. Quote, from a Connecticut online discussion board, went there on a dare. Navigation died, camera glitched, heard nothing but wind, except there was no wind. So, just for absolute clarity, this is a community with zero structures, zero population, and a reputation for causing reality disconnection. But hey, the property taxation is minimal, and let's address the designation, Dark Entry Forest. That's the actual official name of the land containing Dudleytown. Dark Entry Forest. Like a rejected spell from a fantasy novel or a horror film crowdfunding campaign that became too immersive. If your neighborhood designation sounds predatory, don't express surprise when people believe it's haunted. Picture this scenario. You're hiking through thick woodland. No signage, no ambient sound. Even birds maintain silence. Your phone battery dead. You're convinced you passed that identical rock formation 10 minutes earlier. Then you realize you haven't heard your companion's voice recently. You rotate around, and they've vanished. Only trees and absolute stillness remain. In Florida, alligators appear in your backyard. In Dudleytown, you experience existential dread and illegal trespassing notices in a portal to nowhere. Now, imagine residing somewhere with zero emergency sirens, zero traffic congestion, zero loud neighbors. Just endless forest, soft moss underfoot, and a silence that feels ancient. Sounds tranquil, correct? Until you examine the statistics and realize that's because nobody remains to generate noise. Would you spend one night in Dudleytown with no phone, no flashlight, and no exit until sunrise? Yes or absolutely not? Share your horror film energy in the comments. Dudleytown might feel like civilization's endpoint, but the next location started unsettling and never stopped intensifying. Number 6, Whittier, Alaska. All four walls, all the time. There exists a community in Alaska where nearly the entire population resides inside one building. Not metaphorical language, not a religious compound, just real estate merged with survival horror. Welcome to the Concrete Hive. Whittier, Alaska. Population approximately 275. Housing options. 1. The Begich Towers. A 14-story Cold War-era structure functioning as apartment complex, city hall, educational facility, grocery store, post office, church, laundromat, and possibly a crypt for your sanity. Constructed in 1956 as a military installation, this single monolith now contains essentially the entire town. Step outside and you're confronting harsh Alaskan wilderness. Remain inside and you're permanently in everyone else's business forever. Average winter temperature, -15 degrees Fahrenheit. Annual snowfall, 250 plus inches. Monthly rent around $600 to $900. Affordable until you calculate the therapy costs. Employment, port operations, government positions, and whatever requires doing in the tower. Tunnel access, one route, closes at night. Crime statistics, low because where would perpetrators flee? Technically, Whittier experiences virtually no crime because if you commit one, your escape route shuts at 8 p.m. Life inside a bunker might sound somewhat efficient. You never scrape windshield ice. You can walk to school without outdoor exposure, and your neighbor's cooking becomes your cooking whether you desire it or not. But the reverse side, there's nowhere to escape awkward elevator conversations. You literally share the same building as your mayor, your former romantic partner, your mail carrier, and the person who never sanitizes the laundry machines. Okay? Imagine ordering food delivery here. Your meal must travel through a tunnel, cutting through a mountain and closing at night. Sorry, your sushi's frozen because our delivery driver got trapped behind a glacier. Also, every structure here connects through underground corridors. It's like a haunted simulation game built by someone who's never experienced personal space. Imagine waking up, pulling on slippers, and walking down the hallway to collect your mail, purchase groceries, and deliver your child to school without ever stepping outside. Sounds rather cozy until your walls are thin and your upstairs neighbor plays Frozen on continuous loop. Then it's just Stockholm Syndrome with superior insulation. In Los Angeles, your neighbor ignores your existence. In Whittier, they hear you chewing from 3 doors away. Would you live in a community where your entire existence happens in one building, or would you tunnel out on day 3? And if Whittier feels claustrophobic, wait until you encounter the next community where the ground itself attempts erasing what's left. Number 5, Fallsville, Ohio, when dreams dry up. Fallsville represents a community that was abandoned before it even received a chance to fail. That's correct. This place vanished itself before the 20th century could arrive. Fallsville, Ohio, is technically a ghost town, but unlike most locations where people lived before departing, Fallsville barely ever materialized. Settled during the early 1800s, it was promoted with classic American pioneer optimism. Waterfalls, natural resources, grand dreams of industrial development. But then nothing happened. No railroad connection, no investor interest, no we'll-make-it-work determination. Just people departing rapidly. By 1890, it was already a memory. Today, it's a woodland patch near a dried creek bed and some forgotten ruins, plus sufficient local legends to make your spine tense. There's no real estate market, no homes, no post office, just a name, some suspicious stone foundations, and a strange atmosphere that locals from nearby New Vienna claim they avoid after dark. It's the kind of location that feels like nature itself conceals something. Online quote from a hiker, "I walked into the Fallsville wildlife area and felt like I wasn't supposed to be there, like the trees were watching. I left in 15 minutes. Population, 0. Housing, just gravity versus whatever's still standing. Wildlife, yes. Humans, no. Crime rate, technically 0. Emotionally, maximum. GPS barely acknowledges its existence." Fallsville skipped the entire being a town phase and proceeded directly to being cursed forest scenery. Ohio has communities that flood, freeze, and fight for economic survival. Fallsville? It said no thanks and rolled into the bushes like a dramatic theater student. There's a 20-foot waterfall which sounds peaceful until you realize it's adjacent to a dried riverbed and a trail called Dead Man's Hollow. Real subtle designation, folks. Picture hiking a trail where your GPS signal malfunctions. You spot what resembles a cellar door covered in moss. The air temperature drops. You don't see anything, but something definitely observes you. You turn to leave, but suddenly the path behind you feels different. In Miami, you risk hurricanes. In Fallsville, you risk wandering into someone else's unfinished narrative. Would you rather live in a haunted community or one that simply surrendered trying? Ghosts or existential dread? Choose your roommate. Because you're clearly interested in cursed architecture, forest-dwelling trauma, and places with an atmosphere nobody requested, you might as well press the like button before the spirits do. Subscribe now because the next time you get lost in the woods, this is the knowledge that might save you. Or at least make it creepier. Number 4. Nome, Alaska, the town where people vanish. At what point do missing person reports begin feeling less like unfortunate coincidence and more like an established pattern? Nome, Alaska might possess the answer, and you probably won't appreciate it. Literally the edge of nowhere. Nome is positioned on the edge of the Bering Sea. Remote, frozen, and excessively quiet. It's where roads refuse to go, literally. No highways connect Nome to the rest of Alaska. If you want entrance or exit, you fly or you sled. That's it. But that's not the disturbing part. Since the 1960s, dozens of people, predominantly indigenous residents, have disappeared from Nome. As in gone, no remains, no evidence, no closure. FBI documentation, public speculation, even an entire film called The Fourth Kind attempted explaining it. Hypothermia, alcohol, extraterrestrial abduction, serial killers. Select your theory. Nome by the numbers, average winter temperature. -10 degrees Fahrenheit before wind chill. Population, approximately 3,600. Cost of living, 62% higher than United States average. Employment, gold mining, fishing, school system. Missing persons, at least 24 unsolved cases between 1960 to 2004. Some towns lose electrical power. Nome loses people. Nome isn't merely isolated. It's surrounded by tundra, capable of swallowing you whole. Search parties fail. Drones don't help. Cellular service is unreliable. And the weather? Think freezer door left open in a hurricane. Locals say when you go hiking or hunting here, you leave a written note. And if someone doesn't return by dark, you report it immediately. Nome has 3 bars, 1 hospital, and 0 Starbucks. So you're really gambling here. Want to complain about your rideshare taking too long? Good luck. The only vehicle collecting you in Nome is probably a snow machine operated by your cousin's ex-boyfriend in a parka. Picture walking outside. You can see for miles. White tundra, frozen air sparkling in the low sun, no sound, just crunching snow beneath your boots. You feel alone until you don't. There's nobody around, but somehow you feel watched, and the sky is already darkening. In Las Vegas, what happens stays hidden. In Nome, what disappears just stays gone. And if Nome is where people disappear, the next community is where people remain on purpose, even when they shouldn't. Coming up, a location where society took a vacation and never returned. Number 3, Cairo, Illinois, the city that erased itself. Cairo, Illinois isn't haunted by ghosts, it's haunted by the decisions it made and the silence that followed. A city constructed to matter and abandoned to decay. Cairo, because naturally it is, sits where the Mississippi and Ohio rivers converge, a location that should have made it a thriving, unstoppable port city. Instead, it's a modern ghost town with crumbling mansions, boarded windows, and a population smaller than your average high school. Once known as Little Chicago, Cairo was wealthy, bustling, and full of promise until it tore itself apart with racism, corruption, and violence. The 1960s civil rights movement hit hard here. But instead of evolving, much of the town's leadership abandoned ship. Businesses departed, residents followed, and what's left now feels like the shell of a place that chose to disappear. Cairo by the numbers. Population in 1920, approximately 15,000. Population in 2023, approximately 1,700. Unemployment rate, 3 times the state average. Median home price, approximately $33,000. Major employers, county jail, school district, FedEx hub. Seriously, this is one of the only communities where the economy collapsed and the buildings politely waited for permission to deteriorate. Living in Cairo is like being trapped inside a history documentary that ran out of budget. Entire blocks are abandoned, public housing has been demolished, the town has no functioning movie theater, no grocery store, and barely a future. And yet, strangely, it still feels like something is watching. Like the stories buried here never really departed. Cairo is the kind of place where you feel like an extra in a horror movie you didn't audition for. Okay, but explain this. How does a town with 2 rivers manage to be this dry? There's no economic flow, no nightlife, not even decent takeout. I've seen busier cemeteries. Even the street lights seem to flicker out of obligation. Picture stepping onto a sidewalk lined with grand Victorian houses. Windows dark, porches sagging. The only sound, your own footsteps. Even the birds don't seem interested in remaining. The wind carries history here, and none of it feels friendly. In some towns, time moves too fast. In Cairo, time just surrendered. Number 2, Helltown, Ohio, the evacuation that no one can explain. How do you evacuate an entire town overnight and never provide a straight answer why? Welcome to Helltown, Ohio. Population, 0. Suspicion, sky high. A town that disappeared itself but didn't. Let's address this immediately. The name is authentic. The rumors? Even wilder. Helltown is an abandoned section of Boston Township, Ohio, where in 1974 the federal government swept in, purchased homes, and evicted residents supposedly to expand the national park system. Only they didn't. The buildings sat empty for years. Roads were barricaded, signs warned people to stay out, and conspiracy theories exploded. Satanic cults, mutant monsters, government experiments, a chemical spill. The place has more theories than social media has opinions. Real-world fact check, Helltown has no official census data. Crime rate, technically 0 because everyone's gone. Rent, non-existent, but you could pay $400 per night to stay nearby and get the worst sleep of your life. Most of the abandoned buildings were demolished in the early 2000s, but the paranoia, still very much alive. Online, quote, "We broke in once at 2 a.m. The trees were dead silent, and then something hissed at us from the church. Never again." It's the only place where a no trespassing sign actually feels like it's doing you a favor. Who names a town Helltown and then acts surprised when urban legends show up like uninvited relatives at Thanksgiving? And why was the evacuation so suspicious? If you're closing a town to plant trees, just plant the trees. Don't transform it into the setting of every 2000s horror movie. And by the way, there's an actual school bus of death rumor. Go ahead, search it, I'll wait. Imagine driving down a cracked, foggy road. Every house is boarded up, trees press in like they're listening. You stop the car, your cellular service drops, a church looms ahead. No windows, just darkness. And you think, nope. Remember when I said don't stay after dark? Helltown wrote the rule book on that. Statistically speaking, this town has fewer people than a high school chess club, but somehow it still makes people disappear. Number 1, Monowi, Nebraska. The town with one soul. This isn't a ghost town. It's a ghost resident town. You ever hear the phrase small town vibes? Monowi cranked that dial down to 1, literally. Welcome to the community with a 100% voter turnout rate because there's one voter. Monowi, Nebraska isn't just the smallest town in America. It's the only incorporated town with a population of 1. That one person, Elsie Eiler. Mayor, bartender, librarian, city planner, and yes, the only person who pays taxes to herself. It's not an unsettling town in the way you'd expect. No glowing eyes in the woods, no cursed coal fires, just eerie emptiness. Silence so thick you can hear your own social anxiety echo. Let's break it down. Population, 1. No typographical error. Crime rate, 0%. Unless Elsie's Breaking Bad, she's not. Rent, technically free if you're Elsie. Job market, 1 opening, 1 hire, also Elsie. Quality of life. If you're an introvert, Monowi is paradise. If you're not, it's an experimental therapy session. It's like a life simulation game, but if the landlord just gave up and let you run the place. Let's be honest, this place feels like a joke someone invented in a diner during a blackout. A town of 1. A library with no patrons. A mayor with no meetings. I can barely manage a group chat without someone rage quitting. Meanwhile, Elsie's out here running a complete government on her lunch break. Picture this. You walk outside. It's dead silent. The wind rustles a cornfield. You go to the bar. The bartender smiles. It's you. You forgot it's your shift again. But hey, no traffic, no lines. Just peace and a slightly creepy quiet that makes your phone battery drop out of fear. Like this video because you now know about a town that could technically lose its mayor to a nap. That's worth a like, if only to let Elsie know she's not actually alone. Subscribe because if a town with 1 person has a functioning government, your life has no excuse. Hit subscribe. Consider it a survival tip for the impending social collapse. Honestly, it's the only place I've been where my own echo judged me. Probably someone from an online forum who got lost on a road trip. So yeah, Monowi. 1 resident, Zero drama, infinite weird energy. Honestly, it's the only town in America where the phrase, "I run this place," isn't bragging, it's just logistics. These 10 towns prove that America's map has more holes than you thought. Some burned, some vanished, some locked themselves away. And one just decided one person was enough. So the next time you're scrolling through travel destinations, remember, not every dot on the map is meant to be visited. Some places are warnings, some are mysteries, and a few are just waiting to see if you're brave enough or foolish enough to show up. If you made it this far, you're either genuinely fascinated or planning a road trip you absolutely shouldn't take. Either way, smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell because we're just getting started with America's darkest corners. Drop a comment telling me which town creeped you out the most, or better yet, which one you'd actually visit. I'll be reading and judging your life choices accordingly. And remember, some towns die naturally. Others? They had help, or they're still deciding whether to let you leave. Thanks for watching. Stay curious, stay safe, and maybe check your rearview mirror a little more often. You never know what small town you just drove through.